Hi, everybody. He's not done that to me. He bit his finger. Not really hard, but he is so playful now. He's like a totally different dog. Yeah. Let's see. I got comments over here. Okay, thank you, Lily. I went live a little early, so I'm live on Facebook as well. I'm not sure if I'll be able to see comments over there on Facebook, so if I don't say anything, I'm sorry. It's because I don't see the comments. Decided to go with a cup of coffee this evening. It does not keep me awake. It makes me more tired. So I see that Tony was here at 6:30. Yeah. Anyway. It has been a long day. Very long day. Very blah day. So in other words, another one of those days. Oh, working 21 hours. Or 22 hours a week. Until whenever they decide to stop the extra hour every day. Oh, I cover weekends, so I never get to do anything that's not here at home, pretty much. Especially right now, it's winter time almost. But once winter actually hits and slow season comes, I'm not going to be able to get to work in the snow and the ice, so I might have to have my husband drive me to work. He doesn't like doing that because he does not like me being without the car. A couple more minutes and I'll get the meeting going. I'm surprised little man ain't back out here yet. Oh. So last week was a long 2 days that I worked. I came home Saturday night and I crashed by 8:30. I was asleep. And so Sunday, I ended up waking up at 3 o'clock. I was like, no, I don't want to be awake right now. But I still went to work. I worked all but 1 hour of my shift. So, yeah. All right, anyways, it is AA day, so I'm Sandra. I'm an alcoholic. Please be kind in the chat. Don't harass other people that are in the chat or the comments, please. Just because they're there does not mean that they are the alcoholic. They might be a friend trying to welcome, Matthew. Thank you for being here. Like I said, this is AA, and I ask for no harassment, no being judgmental. Don't be rude to each other in the chat or the comments. I do these because it was a gift I was given, and I was taught that I needed to share it. And so that's why I'm doing these meetings, is for those who can't get out away from home or from where they're at, and they just need a meeting, and they can't get to one. And you can watch the replays of these and take them everywhere with you. And so that is why I do these meetings. So anyways, just be kind in the chat and the comments, and don't harass other people. Like I said, they may not be the alcoholic. They might be here to learn how to help a friend or family member to get sober and know the right things and the wrong things to say to those that they are trying to help. So that's my husband playing with the dog. He's 3. Anyways.
And so is the dog.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And Matthew, feel free to ask questions if you have any. I try to answer them as best as I can. And there are people in the chat that are just as lucky as I am that have been sober and for a while, and they know how to answer your questions as well. One person happens to be my twin sister, that's Lillian, and the other person in there that's here right now is my sponsor. She has been sober for 14 years. I've been sober for 11, and my sister has been sober for 10. But no matter how long you've been sober, you're welcome here, even if it is your first day. So don't get discouraged. We all know how it is to be the new person of being sober, and not knowing exactly how it's going to work or things that you need to do. And pretty much it is all based upon how you feel and how quick you want to do your steps and all of that. So we don't rush people to go back. So that's sorry about your loss. We just lost one of my great aunts and my husband's cousin. My husband's cousin passed away in a fire. An alcoholic. He didn't get sober, and we don't know if that's why he wouldn't wake up or whatever. But yeah, so that all just happened last month. So it's been a hard year, and my cousin passed away also this year. So it's definitely not been easy. But anyways, 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defective characters. 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and become willing to make amends to them all. 9. May direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10. Continue to take personal inventory and when wrong, promptly admit it. 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. And of course, I start reading and I'm sweating. We'll get on the baptism. I'm baptized, so I'm not very religious. I believe that there's something bigger than myself, obviously, but I'm not, like I said, I'm not religious. And I'm not worried about people, their anything, what their religion is, what their ethic is, or anything like that. So you're welcome here no matter what. So part 1, Pioneers of AA. Dr. Bob and the 9 men and women who here tell their stories were among the early members of AA's first group. All 10 have now passed away of natural causes, having maintained complete sobriety. Today, hundreds of additional AA members can be found who have had no relapse for more than 30 years. All of these then are the pioneers of AA. They bear witness that release from alcoholism can really be permanent. So I always put in the description what book we're reading, what page we're on, what story we're reading, or chapter, or step, or whatever we're reading. I always put it in there. So I am reading the 4th edition. There are different ones. We're supposed to be getting a new one this year. I think either this month or in January. So it's really close of being out. So hopefully soon it's the updated one with everything that, the words that I have to put in there, he or she or stuff like that. Yeah, so it's going to be easier for us to read them and not have to add words or take words out. Yeah, sometimes that can help with getting us off of that wrong path, for sure. Dr. Bob's Nightmare, a co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, the birth of our society dates from his first day of treatment or of permanent sobriety, June 10th, 1935, to 1950. The year of his death, he carried the AA message to more than 5,000 alcoholic men and women, and to all these he gave his medical service without thought of charge. In this prodigy of service, he was well assisted by Sister Ignita at St. Thomas Hospital in Akron, Ohio, one of the greatest friends our fellowship will ever know. I'll be right back. I'm going to grab something to put my hair up with. That was thingy. I had a hair tie on my wrist. Duh. So I've got two now. I was born in a small New England village, about 7,000 souls. The general moral standard was, as I recall it, far above the average. No beer or liquor was sold in the neighborhood except at the state liquor agency, where perhaps one might procure a pint if he could convince the agent that he really needed it. Without this proof, the expectant purchaser would be forced to depart empty-handed with none of what I later came to believe was the great panacea of all human ills. Men who had liquor skipped in from Boston or New York by express were looked upon with great distrust and disfavor by most of the good townspeople. The town was well supplied with churches and schools in which I pursued my early educational activities. My father was a professional man of recognized ability, and both my father and mother were most active in church affairs. Both father and mother were considerably above the average in intelligence. Unfortunately for me, I was the only child, which perhaps engendered the selfishness which played such an important part in beginning on my alcoholism. From childhood through high school, I was more or less forced to go to church, Sunday school and evening service, Monday night Christian endeavors, and sometimes to Wednesday evening prayer meeting. This had the effect of making me resolve that when I was free from parental domination, I would never again darken the doors of a church. This resolution I kept steadfastly for the next 4 years, except when circumstances made it seem unwise to absent myself. Get out of the kitchen, Ryder. You better go get Dad. After high school came 4 years in one of the best colleges in the country, where drinking seemed to be a major extracurricular activity. Almost everyone seemed to do it. I did it more and more and had lots of fun without much grief, either physical or financial. I seemed to be able to snap back the next day or next morning better than most of my fellow drinkers, who were cursed or perhaps blessed with a great deal of morning after nausea. Never once in my life have I had an alcoholic or had a headache, which fact leads me to believe that I was an alcoholic almost from the start. My whole life seemed to be centered around doing what I wanted to do without regard for the rights, wishes, or privileges of anyone else. A state of mind which became more and more prominent as the years passed. I graduated, summa cum laude, in the eyes of the drinking fraternity, but not in the eyes of the dean. The next 3 years I spent in Boston, Chicago, and Montreal in the employ of a large manufacturing concern, selling railway supplies, gas engines of all sorts, and many other items of heavy hardware. During these years, I drank as much as my purse permitted, still without paying too great a penalty, although I was beginning to have morning jitters at times. I lost only a half day's work during these 3 years. My next move was to take up the study of medicine, entering one of the largest universities in the country. There I took up the business of drinking with much greater earnestness than I had previously shown. On account of my enormous capacity for beer, I was elected to membership in one of the drinking societies and soon became one of the leading spirits. Many mornings I have gone to classes, and even though fully prepared, would turn and walk back to the fraternity house because of my jitters, not daring to enter the classroom for fear of making a scene should I be called on for recitation. This went from bad to worse until sophomore spring, when after a prolonged period of drinking, I made up my mind that I could not complete my course, so I packed my grip and went south to spend a month on a large farm owned by a friend of mine. When I got the fog out of my brain, I decided that quitting school was very foolish and that I had better return and continue my work. When I reached school, I discovered the faculty had other ideas on the subject. After much argument, they allowed me to return and take my exams, all of which I passed creditably. But they were much disgusted and told me they would attempt to struggle along without my presence. After many painful discussions, they finally gave me my credits, and I migrated to another of the leading universities of the country and entered as a junior that fall. There, my drinking became so much worse that the boys in the fraternity house where I lived felt forced to send for my father, who made a long journey in the vain endeavor to get me straightened around. This had little effect, however, for I kept on drinking and used a great deal more hard liquor than in former years. Coming up to final exams, I went on a particularly strenuous spree. When I went in to write the examinations, my hand trembled so I could not hold a pencil. I passed in at least 3 absolutely blank books. I was, of course, soon on the carpet, and the upshot was that I had to go back for 2 more quarters and remain absolutely dry if I wished to graduate. This I did, and proved myself satisfactory to the faculty, both in deportment and so scholarly. I conducted myself so credibly that I was able to secure a much coveted internship in a western city where I spent 2 years. During these 2 years, I was kept so busy that I hardly left the hospital at all. Consequently, I could not get into any trouble. When those 2 years were up, I opened an office downtown. I had some money, all the time in the world, and considerable stomach trouble. I soon discovered that a couple of drinks would alleviate my gastric distress, at least for a few hours at a time. So it was not at all difficult for me to return to my former excessive indulgence. By this time, I was beginning to pay very dearly physically, and I hope, and in hope of relief, voluntarily incriminated myself at least a dozen times in one of the local sanitariums. I was between Celia and Tiberius now because if I did not drink, my stomach tortured me, and if I did drink, or if I did, my nerves did the same thing. After 3 years of this, I wound up in the local hospital where they attempted to help me, but I would get my friends to smuggle me a quart, or I would steal the alcohol about the building so that I got rapidly worse. Finally, my father had to send a doctor out from my hometown who managed to get me back there in some way, and I was in bed about 2 months before I could venture out of the house. I stayed about town a couple of months more and then returned to resume my practice. I think I must have been thoroughly scared by what had happened, or by the doctor, or probably both, so that I did not touch a drink again until the country went dry. With the passing of the 18th Amendment, I felt quite safe. I knew everyone would buy a few bottles or cases of liquor as their excruciators permitted, and that it would soon be gone. Therefore, it would make no great difference, even if I should do some drinking. At that time, I was not aware of the almost ultimately or unlimited supply the government made it possible for us doctors to obtain. Neither had I any knowledge of the bootlegger who soon appeared on the horizon. I drank with moderation at first, but it took me only a relatively short time to drift back into the old habits, which had wound up so disastrously before. During the next few years, I developed two distinct phobias. One was the fear of not sleeping, and the other was fear of running out of liquor. Not being a man of means, I knew that if I did not stay sober enough to earn money, I would run out of liquor. Most of the time, therefore, I did not take the morning drink, which I craved so badly. But instead, I would fill up one large dose of sedative to quiet the jitters, which distressed me terribly. Occasionally, I would yield to the morning craving, but if I did, I can't read with your head in the way. But if I did, it would be only a few hours before I would be quite unfit for work. This would lessen my chances of smuggling some home that evening, which in turn would mean a night of futile tossing around in bed, followed by a morning of unbearable jitters. During the subsequent 15 years, I had sense enough never to go to the hospital if I had been drinking, and very seldom did. I received patients. I would sometimes hide out in one of the clubs of which I was a member and had the habit at times of registering at a hotel under a fictitious name. But my friends usually found me, and I would go home if they promised that I should not be scolded. If my wife was planning to go out in the afternoon, I would get a large supply of liquor and smuggle it home and hide it in the coal bin. The clothes chute over the door jamb, over the beams in the cellar, and in cracks in the cellar tile. I also made use of old trunks and chests, the old can container, and even the ash container. The water tank of the toilet I never used because that looked too easy. I found out later that my wife inspected it frequently. I used to put 8 or 12-ounce bottles of alcohol in a fur-lined glove and toss it onto the back airing porch when winter days got dark enough. My bootlegger had hidden alcohol at the back steps where I could get it at my convenience. Sometimes I would bring it in my pockets, but they were inspected and that became too risky. I used also to put it up in 4-ounce bottles and stick several in my stocking tops. This worked nicely until my wife and I went to see Wallace Berry in Tugboat Annie, after which the pant leg and stocking racket were out. I will not take space to relate all my hospital or sanitarium experiences. During all this time, we became more or less ostracized by our friends. We could not be invited out because I would surely get tight and my wife dared not invite people in for the same reason. My phobias from sleeplessness demanded that I get drunk every night, but in order to get more liquor for the next night, I had to stay sober during the day, at least up to 4 o'clock. This routine went on with few interruptions for 17 years. It was really a horrible nightmare, this earning money, getting liquor, smuggling at home, getting drunk, morning jitters, taking large doses of sedative to make it possible for me to earn more money, and so on ad nauseum. I used to promise my wife my friends and my children that I would drink no more. Go get Dad, Ryder. Promises which seldom kept me sober even through the day, though I was very sincere when I made them. For the benefit of those experimentally inclined, I should mention the so-called beer experiment. When beer first came back, I thought that I was safe. I could drink all I wanted of that. It was harmless. Nobody ever got drunk on beer, so I filled the cellar full, with the permission of my good wife. It was not long before I was drinking at least a case and a half a day. I put on 30 pounds of weight in about 2 months, looked like a pig, and was uncomfortable from shortness of breath. It then occurred to me that after one was all smelled up with beer, nobody could tell what had been drunk. So I began to fortify my beer with straight alcohol. Of course, the result was very bad, and that ended the beer experiment. About the time of the beer experiment, I was thrown in with a crowd of people who attracted me because of their seeming poise, health, and happiness. They spoke with great freedom from embarrassment, which I could never do, and they seemed very much at ease on all occasions and appeared very healthy. More than these attributes, they seemed to be happy. I was self-conscious and ill at ease most of the time. My health was at the breaking point and I was thoroughly miserable. I sensed they had something I did not have, from which I might readily profit. I learned that it was something of a spiritual nature, which did not appeal to me very much. But I thought it could do no harm. I gave the matter much time and study for the next 2.5 years, but I still got tight every night. Nevertheless, I read everything I could find and talked to everyone who I thought knew anything about it. My wife became deeply interested, and it was her interest that sustained mine, though I at no time sensed that it might be an answer to my liquor problem. How my wife kept her faith and courage during all those years, I'll never know, but she did. If she had not, I know I would have been gone a long time ago. For some reason, we alcoholics seem to have the gift of picking out the world's finest women. Why they should be subjected to the tortures we inflict upon them, I cannot explain. About this time, a lady called up my wife one Saturday afternoon, saying she wanted me to come over that evening to meet a friend of hers who might help me. It was the day before Mother's Day, and I had come home plastered, carrying a big potted plant, which I set down on the table and forthwith went upstairs and passed out. The next day she called again, wishing to be polite. Though I felt very badly, I said, "Let's make the call," and extracted from my wife a promise that we would not stay over 15 minutes. We entered her house at exactly 5 o'clock, and it was 11:15 when we left. I had a couple of shorter talks with this man afterward and stopped drinking abruptly. This dry spell lasted about 3 weeks. When I went to Atlantic City to attend several days meetings of a National Society of which I was a member, I drank all the scotch they had on the train and bought several quarts on the way to the hotel. This was on Sunday. I got tight that night, stayed sober Monday till after the dinner, and then proceeded to get tight again. I drank all I dared in the bar and then went to my room to finish the job. Tuesday, I started in the morning, getting well organized by noon. I did not want to disgrace myself, so I then checked out. I bought some more liquor on the way to the depot. I had to wait some time for the train. I remembered nothing from then on until I woke up at a friend's house in a town near home. These good people notified my wife, who sent my newly made friend over to get me. He came and got me home and to bed. Gave me a few drinks that night and one bottle of beer the next morning. That was June 10th, 1935, and that was my last drink. As I write, nearly 4 years have passed. The question which might naturally come into your mind would be, what did the man do or say that was different from what others had done or said? It must be remembered that I had read a great deal and talked to everyone who knew or thought they knew anything about the subject of alcoholism. I lost my spot, which was undoubtedly helpful. Of far more importance was the fact that he was the first living human with whom I had ever talked alcoholism, or I have ever talked who knew what he was talking about in regard to alcoholism from actual experience. In other words, he talked my language. He knew all the answers, and certainly not because he had picked them up in his reading. Go get Dad, writer. It is a most wonderful blessing to be relieved of the terrible curse with which I was afflicted. My health is good, and I have regained my self-respect and the respect of my colleagues. My home life is ideal, and my business is as good as can be expected in these uncertain times. I spend a great deal of time passing on what I learned to others who want and need it badly. I do it for 4 reasons. 1, sense of duty. 2, it's a pleasure. 3, because in so doing, I am paying my debt to the man who took time to pass it on to me. 4, because every time I do it, I take out a little more insurance for myself against a possible slip. Unlike most of our crowd, I did not get over my craving for liquor much during the first 2.5 years of abstinence. It was almost always with me, but at no time have I been anywhere near yielding. I used to get terribly upset when I saw friends drink. I knew I could not, but I schooled myself to believe that though I had the same privilege, I had abused it so frightfully that it was withdrawn. So it doesn't behoove me to squawk about it, for after all, nobody ever had to throw me down and pour liquor down my throat. If you think you are an atheist, an agnostic, a skeptic, or have any other form of intellectual pride which keeps you from accepting what is in this book, I feel sorry for you. If you still think you are strong enough to beat the game alone, that is your affair. But if you really and truly want to quit drinking liquor for good and all, and sincerely feel that you must have some help, we know that we have an answer for you. It never fails. If you go about it with one half the zeal you have been in the habit of showing when you were getting another drink, your Heavenly Father will never let you down. And Dr. Bob, go get that writer. My arms are killing me. So like it says, the four, sense of duty, it is a pleasure because in doing so, I'm paying my debt to man who took time to the man who took time to pass it to me. And then 4, because every time I I take out a little more insurance for myself against a possible slip. I didn't slip after I found AA. I did that before I found AA. And I never thought that going to one meeting would have any impact on me. Man, was I wrong. Because I had already gone out and relapsed on my own before I found AA, I knew when I found AA and they were teaching me about the slip. It's real. Doing the beer game. I did that. I went from drinking liquor to drinking wine to drinking beer, straight beer, nothing else. And I end up the same place. The last time I went out on a bender was for a couple years. And I didn't start all over. I started where I had left off. Because you don't start from not ever drinking. You start from where you left off. And I think that's part of why AA has stuck with me and why it's worked. And working the steps and being in those rooms and listening to the stories and having those friends in those rooms that can understand my struggle in whatever day and whatever I'm struggling with. I got a sponsor right after my first meeting. She's been my sponsor for 11 years. And having the tools that I have in my sobriety toolbox that I've gotten from these rooms and these friends of mine, I don't think about alcohol anymore. I listen to the music with the word of my favorite drink in it. It doesn't bother me. My dad still has a drink every now and then, and when I first got sober, he wouldn't drink if I was there. He felt he had to hide it. He had to hide his liquor, and his drink was the same as mine. Good old Jack Daniels, and I could drink that stuff straight. But for me, having my sobriety and the know of I can say no, I can walk away from it, that I don't have to take that drink and nobody else is going to force me to, it just became like nothing, and my dad leaves his Jack Daniels on the counter. I don't touch it. I see it. It's there. It doesn't bother me. I've gone to meetups, YouTube meetups, and they drink. Oh boy, do they drink. And I was offered right as soon as I got to the first one I went to, a big ass gallon thing of Jack Daniels, and I was like, whoa, I was backed up. I was like, nope, I'm walking away from that. No thanks. And I was fine to have fun without it. Just like even now, 11 years later, from getting sober, I'm fine without it. And I don't expect people to hide it from me or like not be around me when they're drinking. But knowing that I have the sobriety and the strength in myself and being proud of myself for all I've been through since being sober and learning the things that I need to do for me to keep the sobriety, I have no worries about going back to that. I know that if I take that first one, I'm going to be right where I left off 11 years ago, and I don't want to do that. I have seen people have to start all over again, and the devastation that they have to admit that they fell off has been something that has kept me from going that route, because it's easy to do. I mean, you could just take one sip and that's it, and you got to start it all over again. And some of us don't make it back. Once we go back out, we don't come back. And that's something I worry about. And I don't want to have to start completely over. And I'm not willing to give up on my sobriety for anything or anyone. If somebody wants to only be my friend if I drink, well, you're not my friend then. And I can be picky about who I have in my life and who I choose to share my sobriety with and who's going to be part of it. And And whenever I have any questions about it, if I feel the urge that I'm going to step out, I call people. I call my sponsor. I do these meetings for the same purpose. I'm helping you as I'm helping myself to keep myself sober and help you to be sober. It's all in sharing the message of Alcoholics Anonymous that we do it for, is to help other alcoholics as well as ourselves. He's got to be on my lap. So those of you who have not met him, this is Ryder. Yes, I said your name. We were going to name him, what was your name going to be? Pugsley? So his name is Ryder Pugsley Hawkins, huh? Yeah. We decided to keep his original name because he knows that name. And he has brought joy to us, and he's got his quirks. There's things that he does not like. Dad's figured those out, huh? Yeah. But since we got him on my sobriety birthday, he has been inseparable from me. When I go to work, he gets up in the windowsill and he whines and he barks. Mama, take me with you. Take me with you, but you get car sick. Yeah, you get car sick, don't ya? Mama had to clean it up off the seat, huh? He does not like riding in the car. Prayers do work. Absolutely, they do. But like I said, we're getting into the stories that we can all relate to. And it does get a lot easier as you have more time in your sobriety. Yeah, we still have people that have been sober for 30 years and end up going out. Yes, I know that. That's a possibility. But we can't think that way. We have to take it one day at a time, because we're sober now and we can be sober in the morning, huh? Yeah, we can, huh? Yeah. Yes. He's a little spoiled, huh? He's a spoiled boy. He knows he's spoiled. Very spoiled. He gives Chris the side eye. Like, really? You gonna mess with me right now? Really? Huh? He sleeps in some of the weirdest positions. Like, he's got his head all flopped all the way back like he's a dead dog. But he ain't. He's breathing, huh? He's like, Mom, you're talking about me. Mom, why you talking about me? He's a miniature copper. Yeah. He's probably going to be my last dog. Yeah. I get him to the vet. He needs to get his shots. He does not like that word. You don't like the word vet? Want to see the doggy doctor? That's my eyeball. That's my eyeball. It didn't need cleaned. I love you, though. Yes, I do. Mom loves you. He's like, whatever, Mom. Can we go to bed now? Can we go to bed now? You're sleeping all day. Mom. Anyways, should we say the prayer, so we can go to bed? What? Anyway. Let's go ahead and say our serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Keep coming back. It works if you work it. I love you guys.